everyone, and welcome to another segment of Cooking with Auntie Sonia. Tonight we are making salmon and spaghetti squash, that beautiful spaghetti squash, broccoli, and fried plantains. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to pay close attention because I normally cook with just a splash here, but tonight I took the time to go ahead and measure out certain things so that you can see what we're doing. First, we're going to start with seasoning our salmon. What I have is 4-ounce portions of salmon, and what I've already done is I've already washed them and patted them dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a seasoning that I made, and it's just something that I put together, and I'll tell you really quickly what my ingredients are. I have 2 tablespoons of my all-purpose seasoning, which you guys know is one of my favorite seasonings. Here we go, my all-purpose baby. And I have 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. I have 1 tablespoon of black pepper because I have 10 pieces of salmon that I'll be seasoning. That's why I have so much seasoning. And I have a teaspoon of ground ginger and half a teaspoon of turmeric and half a teaspoon of cinnamon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle on the dry ginger and the other blend that I just told you. But before I do that, I also went ahead and made a quick paste. If you can zoom in a little bit, Chris. The paste is made of a teaspoon of garlic paste that we have here, a teaspoon of my hot peppers. Where are my peppers? I tucked them away, but I will pull that out for you. And because my guest, who's on the camera, hey there Chris, he likes it spicy, so I'm actually making some that he can have. He says add a little bit more pepper, Auntie Sonia, so that's what I did. And I have also put in here a little bit of browning. And browning is really, really dark, so you have to be mindful. And what I'm going to do with the paste is I'm going to take the back of my teaspoon and I'm going to just bathe my salmon with a little bit of that. And as you can see, it adds a nice little coating to our salmon. And each piece will get a quick little bath in the glaze that I've prepared. It's not really a glaze, it's just a quick little coating. And I'm gonna let the salmon soak that up while I go ahead and prepare our spaghetti squash. Many of you have written in and told me that you like the spaghetti squash recipe that I did before, so tonight I'm going to do it again for you. But this time, instead of the yellow one, I have one that's very orange in color, which is a beautiful lush color there, and I'll prepare that. So let me finish up with our salmon here. Don't really want to rush it because I don't want my salmon pieces to fall apart, because it's not the salmon with the skin on, it's skin off, so it's a little bit more delicate. And folks, let me just take a break to say this. Now, y'all know the L in salmon is silent. It is not salmon. It is salmon. Say it with me. Say salmon, not salmon. The L is silent. That is a pet peeve of mine. So I just wanted to take the time because it's my show and tell y'all it's salmon, not salmon. All right, moving right along. While it soaks up its little bath, we're gonna go ahead and we are going to cut through our spaghetti squash. And I'm going to start by cutting off the top of the squash, and then I'm going to cut down the middle of it right there and have it wide open for you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, if you'll zoom in here, you'll see this portion here, that's the seed of it. You're just going to cut around it and just cut the seeds out. Take your time so that you don't dig out too much of the delicious spaghetti that lies underneath. Just delicately cut it out. And I know that we cooked this before, but just for those of you who missed that segment, here we go again. And you just take it out, just take out the seeds, and voila, you have your spaghetti squash. Then what you'll do is you'll take the spaghetti squash. It's already been washed and cleaned. So what you'll do, for my church folks again, you'll take a little bit of that olive oil, which is your anointed oil, and you'll put a little bit of olive oil on your spaghetti squash. Watch me now. You just go ahead and you just rub it on, rub it in, just anoint it right there. Just a little bit of anointing right there. And then you take again, my favorite, the all-purpose season. Don't do too much because it can be a little salty if you put too much on it. But because it's a complete seasoning and it has everything in it, it's just beautiful. And you just sprinkle on. You just sprinkle on a little bit, not too much. You don't want to overpower it. And again, you just go ahead and rub it on. And it's also to your taste as well. You can rub it on based on your taste. And you go ahead and you'll do both sides. And then what you'll do, you'll take a little bit of that same olive oil and you'll put it in your pot, just a tad, in your baking pan. And then you go ahead and you get the bottom of your pan nice and oiled. And then you take your squash and you just put it right in there. And you're gonna stick it in the oven and bake it at 350. So what I'm going to do now is, once I'll do the other portion and I'll put it in the oven, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna sprinkle on the dry seasonings that I used for our salmon. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to sprinkle on the dry seasoning, and I forgot to mention that I did add a little bit of Jamaican dry jerk seasoning to this. So this is going to be like a mouth-popping, full of flavor salmon. Again, salmon, not salmon. Alrighty. So we'll sprinkle it on each side, and I'll turn it over and do both sides. You don't want to over season it as well because you still want to have that salmon taste. What I'll do is I'll add my butter, and I'm going to let my butter go ahead and melt a tad. What I'll do is I'll add my pieces of salmon so that they can get a little. Silence is golden. You just want to listen to that pot just sizzle. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm just letting the salmon cook in the butter just for a little bit. While the salmon's cooking, I'll go ahead and prepare my broccoli. The broccoli has already been cut and washed. So what I'll do is, this does not need a whole bunch of seasoning, a whole bunch of anything. Just a quick dash of garlic powder. Just a little dash. Another quick dash, light dash of seasoning salt. And a capful of olive oil. And I'm actually going to stick it in the oven with my spaghetti squash at 365 degrees for 15 minutes, just to let it get a little heat through it, and I'll toss it just a little bit so the seasoning can get over all of the pieces of broccoli, that luscious green broccoli. Just toss it, and I'm gonna stick it in the oven and let it cook for 15 minutes, and it'll be ready. It'll just steam right through. See that beautiful? I wish you could smell the awesome goodness through the camera. So one side cooked for about 5 minutes. We'll let the other side do the same for another 5 minutes. And then I'm going to remove them from the pan, from the skillet, and rest them back in the baking pan. And then I'm going to cook the onions. If you notice over here, I've already chopped my onions and my green pepper. And what I'm gonna also add to it is a mango. Now, you never know the goodness of goodness till you've had a yum delicious mango, fresh or just a little sauteed. So let me wash my hands and I'll come right back to you. Just chop right through our onion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the mango, and this one is fairly ripe. See all that goodness? Now, some of you know when you were a child, you loved the mango. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to core the mango. Just like so. And once I've cored it, I'm going to go ahead and just cut it right down. Just cut it off, just like that. Now, those of you at home that are not skilled with the knife, you go right ahead and do it on the cutting board. Don't do like I do. You just cut the mango right out. And then you do the same with the other piece. Now, for those of you who are not into sauces and all of those other things, you can go ahead and eat your salmon just like this. It's already cooked, as you can see. If you zoom in, Chris, I can show the audience that it's already cooked, so they can go right ahead and eat the salmon just like so. It's not dry, it's nice and juicy. Now that one last piece we put in late, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add right to that butter my green peppers, and I'm turning it down to 300 my green peppers, my onions. And I'm gonna let it saute, just let the onions get a little bit glazed. So I'm kind of creating a bed of onions. And I'm gonna let that glaze, the onions and the green pepper, just let it glaze for a little bit. And some of that leftover seasoning that I had previously, I'm gonna sprinkle just a tad in there. And when I say just a tad, I'm talking a pinch here, a pinch there, and I'm literally pinching it, and a pinch there, so that's 4 pinches so far, and just a little pinch for this corner and a little pinch for that corner, and we're good to go. So I'm gonna let it go. It's on 300. I'm gonna let it saute for a little bit, and once it's where it has that clear, glistening color, then I'll add my mangoes, because I don't want the sweet mangoes to overcook too much. And then I'll add my salmon back to the pan, cover it, and let it cook for about 6 minutes in its own juice. So we don't want to, because when the food steams up onto the cover, if I were to cover it and put my salmon in there, if you notice, it starts to steam up right away. You don't want the steam to wash away all the seasonings from the salmon once it gets in there. So once I put it back in there, I'll just put it in there for a quick 6 minutes and let it cook, and then it'll be ready to go. Our onions are semi-caramelized. And now I'm gonna put on my mango so I can add that nice sweet taste. We have it on 250 now, going down to 200. And we're just gonna let it go ahead and simmer for probably about 6 minutes, and then we will turn it off. And as I mentioned previously, we're now going to work on our plantains. Now, many of you have gone to the supermarket and you've said, what kind of big old banana is that? That is a plantain. Now, how you prepare a fried ripe plantain is you go ahead and you core your plantain, cut the top and the bottom, and then you just peel that baby. And all that goodness comes out. It looks like a ripe banana. It is in the banana family. The way I prepare, some people, they just cut it in 3s or 4s. I like nice little dainty slices. So I go ahead and I hold it. If you're not skilled with the knife, do not try this at home. If you're not skilled with the knife, you go ahead and you put it on the cutting board and you cut it like so. See, I've been doing this since I was about 8 years old. So we just cut right through it. And then I have my oil over here. I have some vegetable oil, and I have it heated to about 350. I'll check in a minute to see if, I believe it's at 350. And what's happening right now is it's getting to a place where it's hot now. What I'll do is I'll just test it, see? Touch the oil, touch the plantain in the oil. You see that? starts to give a little fry, so you know it's hot and ready for your plantains. Now, if you're a little scary cat at home and you don't want to burn your hands, you just take your time doing that. You're going to put your plantains in, and you let them fry on both sides until they have this pretty golden yellow color. So while this is frying, I'm going to go and check on my spaghetti squash that's been cooking. So I'll be right with you while I go grab my spaghetti squash. Go ahead and show them that plantain frying in that oil, Chris. Spaghetti squash, and what we're going to do right now is look at that beautiful spaghetti squash, and what we'll do is we'll just soften it up on each side. This is delicious. Getting all of our yum delicious. My mouth is actually watering doing this. I love spaghetti squash, as you guys see. And as you see that? Looks just like spaghetti. Alrighty, I am also gonna get our plates ready so that I can prepare. And I'll be right back with you. Chris, go ahead and check in on those plantains. We have some that are already done. Everyone likes theirs a little different. Some people like it just barely fried. I like it to have a little crispness to it. And that's just the way that you do your plantains. You can do them long ways as well. Let's check in on our salmon over here. Look at that beautiful, delicious salmon with the mangoes, nice and juicy on the top, our onions, and we're gonna get ready to get a plate ready and enjoy. So again, our beautiful spaghetti squash. Stay there. This is Chris is a little rice lover, so I decided to make a treat for him. Many of you island folks know this Grace pumpkin soup mix. What I did was I added it to 4 cups of white rice with 7 cups of water and 2 tablespoons of butter, and there we have our delicious fluffy rice. And I'm gonna go ahead and feed my hungry cameraman. So let me get his plate ready and I'll be right back with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this segment of Cooking with Auntie Sonia, where we prepared our spaghetti squash, our yellow pumpkin rice, our broccoli, fried plantains, and our salmon with mango sauce. Please look below for the link to the recipe and check out my website at www.sipsteaparlor.com. That's P-A-R-L-O-U-R. Thank you for joining me. My cameraman's gonna eat lovely tonight.